Hurricane Katrina, a most powerful hurricane with unprecedented strength. Most of the area will be uninhabitable for weeks. All windows will blow out. All damaged roofs will fail, leaving most homes severely damaged or destroyed. The vast majority of native trees will be snapped or uprooted. Power outages will last for weeks as most power poles will be downed and transformers destroyed. Airborne debris will be widespread and may include heavy items such as household appliances and even light vehicles. Water shortages will make human suffering incredible by modern standards. Persons, pets, livestock exposed to the winds will face certain death if struck. Devastating damage expected. Do not venture outside.
They say a picture is worth 1,000 words. To me, it's worth far more. It's the narrative that we get without words. It's the instant understanding despite any language barrier. It's that connectivity that we get from the visuals. So many people lost so much. And sadly, it was a lot of Black people who we saw, and it was those images that caused a lot of us to feel that we were forgotten about. That was a rude awakening, but it gave New Orleanians this feeling that no one's gonna save us. We have to save ourselves. For some reason, when I left for graduate school, I had all the family photos. I was not a photographer then, and I just decided to stack my photos high. And our home did flood, but because I had the premonition for some reason. And when I came back 45 days after Katrina, fortunately, our photos of the family were still there. I went to graduate school at University of Mississippi 10 days before Hurricane Katrina. When I was in my small apartment in Oxford, Mississippi, and my family of my sister, her 2 kids, my mother and father evacuated and lived with me for a couple of months. The people who evacuated, a lot of them went to neighboring states. But even beyond the damage that was done, it was a speculation that we were gonna make a new New Orleans, or we're gonna get rid of all the poor people. It was gonna be better than ever. New Orleans was gonna be like a Disney. New Orleans is not a monolith. You have some of the rich of the rich and some of the poorest of the poor. I grew up with my mother's stories about Hurricane Betsy that happened 40 years prior to Katrina. I could not imagine that much water in the city. I was going through a guilt while we were watching the coverage. I wanted to be there. I always think about a quote that I believe is attributed to Thomas Jefferson. New Orleans was an impossible city on an inevitable site. He said that New Orleans should have been started 90 miles up north, up the Gulf of Mexico, which would be roughly what Baton Rouge is. He said it was inevitable because it was a port city. It was impossible because of the flooding. So here we are. One of these boxes is like all Katrina photos. So when I first came back to New Orleans, 45 days after Katrina, I knew it was other stories that should be told, but it was that camera that gave me something to do, that gave me a connection to the people. That camera gave me some instant gratification. It gave me this drive to tell stories. And this is my dad moving back to New Orleans, so I call it Blown Back. And this is my mom This is also 2006 Thanksgiving. It's a portrait. And over here in this left corner, we see where the Army Corps of Engineers went to all the homes after Katrina and marked, like, if someone was dead. They sprayed this on all the doors. It was just part of the checks that they did. You know, people couldn't return back home to New Orleans till some 45 days after Katrina. A lot of people much longer. So it just gave you a feeling of sadness when you saw it, particularly for those who came home and had a number on their door signifying that someone died. And for some people, you hear it, if Katrina itself didn't kill them, it was the remnants after. We couldn't immediately move back in. So like most New Orleanians, when we came back home, it was FEMA trailers. So I call this FEMA Trailer King, and this is my dad cooking dinner, something he always did in our FEMA trailer. And this was life for people for quite some time. You're on your property, but you're not in your home because you're just waiting for things to be rebuilt. It was too much damage, and it was an arduous task for a lot of people. And that's people who were fortunate enough to still have a foundation of a home. It's some people whose entire home was ripped off the foundation, and they had to truly rebuild from the ground up. That wasn't our situation, but we never moved back into that home. I grew up in New Orleans in the 90s, and I am who I am because of this place, and I am who I am despite this place. My fondest childhood memories are in two different neighborhoods in New Orleans. First, the 7th Ward, and then secondly, the 6th Ward. And also growing up in the 6th Ward is where second lines pass. When a brass band came by and people doing athletic things like jumping on cars, second line, and all in rhythm, my mother would let me take my trumpet, go out there and try to play, just join the second line, and I probably sounded sad, but it gave me a joy. All right, y'all. How y'all feeling today? I wanted to talk to Beverly and Dr. Dwight McKenna, first of all, for my love of storytelling and their long relationship as the publishers of the New Orleans Tribune. All right, Dr. McKenna. All right. So yeah, I want to come here and talk.
Good. Come on in.
For several generations, the New Orleans Tribune has served the Black community of New Orleans.
All right, man. Thanks.
So before I knew you all as museum owners, I knew the newspaper. So could we take a look at some of the archives of the New Orleans Tribune?
Sure. Celebrating our 40th anniversary, which is incredible to me. I can't believe it. Here's some of the papers that our director has laid out for us to look at. This was a post-Katrina. This was the first Katrina edition after the storm. But where the guys actually said, we finally cleaned up public housing in New Orleans. We couldn't do it, but God did. The city must be something very different with better services and fewer poor people. Those who want to see the city built want to see it done in a completely different way.
Black community was fleeing from the flood. The sheriff of Jefferson Parish blocked the bridge and said, well, go back and die in the flood, but you can't come to Jefferson Parish. So this is how they looked at us. They looked at us as less than people, as garbage who was to be discarded or wasted. Get out of here, and we don't care where you wind up, but get away. Well, that didn't happen.
After Katrina, we saw a need to start a history museum where we talk about the history of free people of color. Our first museum was a museum, George and Leah McKenna Museum, uptown New Orleans. And that's a museum where we feature artwork by and about Black people. With the DEI and the all of that, we've always, publishers of Black newspapers and Black publications, we've been dealing with that for 40 years. What they're talking about now, withdrawing support, it's nothing new to us. It's nothing new to us.
You can't withdraw what we've never
What
had.
was never given us.
Yeah.
When I look back now, over these 40, 50 years, over all that we have done and accomplished, our motto has been resistance. Nobody's given us any money. Nobody has given us paintings. Nobody helped us. On the heels of that storm, though, Katrina, we looked around to what was happening in the city. It was the beginning of gentrification. They were coming in to take the street. Bayou Road is said to be the oldest street in the city, the oldest thoroughfare in the city. It has a very historical significance. The indigenous people and the Africans, the Afro-Cubans, settled back there 1,000 years ago. So we saw where they were coming, where they were going, and again, we said, no, this will never happen.
They bought the block, and they preserved Black businesses. They preserved Black history. It's my hope that the McKinnons can inspire us all. 4 years after Katrina in 2009, my first series was Dreams Do Come True. It was hope. It was life. It was joy. It was listening to jazz and really appreciating the culture of our city. It was celebrating the first Black president. When I really think about it, most of my artistic practice is motivated by two things: being curious or a response to really being upset. And during COVID, I was upset and I was curious, and I was, like most people, trapped inside. The New York Times reached out and asked me to document my family at home. And then that's something I just continued to do. And my wife's a New Orleans woman. We went on our first date. It was at Joan Mitchell Center. And since the last time we met, there's an exhibit that I had at the Antenna Gallery focused on my family, my wife birthing a child, our second child together, as we navigated going to the doctor visits. And to a degree, it felt like Katrina all over again. We were sick and shut in, and to some degree shut out. And those who were working were disproportionately impacted.
The impact of the coronavirus outbreak on members of the famed Zulu Club in New Orleans after they performed at Mardi Gras. After participating in the iconic parade, at least 30 members tested positive for the virus, and at least 8 have died.
New Orleans is about legacy. New Orleans is about community. For generations, for centuries, people have gathered at Congo Square. Even prior to slavery, people were gathering at what's now known as Congo Square. And since 1989, the Congo Square Preservation Society has ensured that people continue to gather. And you could go there any Sunday at 3 p.m. for dancing, community, drumming, and releasing and cleansing of spirits.
So this is indigenous land. In respect for our ancestors and elders, we burn sage to clear the energy out, to pay homage to them. So the tree is a way for me to make sure we're clearing the space, and that we make sure that I'm paying attention to any information that they would like to share. And so I bless the sage we have, honor the tree, and the energy of the tree, and then walk around the tree as well, and then honor it again. And then after that, we make sure we bless the circle as well, to make sure that the drummers are covered, and anyone that comes in the circle are an experience of being honored and reverent. Soon I will pour libations. Libations is an act of storytelling, and I will tell a story, much like the ancient ones did before I arrived. I actually stand on their shoulders. Music is an integral part of what it means to be African, part of the African diaspora. And that's something that people brought with them. They brought people here from 19 plus ethnic groups. They didn't speak the same language, but they did play music. Music became the common language for people. The chattel slavery that people experienced in Louisiana was atrocious, and it could rob people of their lives and their spirit. But the drums have a way of healing one at the cellular level, allowing people to let go of the drama and trauma that's lodged in their body, and allow them to kind of embark upon a new direction, expecting the new to occur, though they haven't really seen what it looks like. It becomes a universal language. It is a sacred space. It's not a place you come and do anything in, because the indigenous people and the African ancestors of the diaspora deem it necessary for us to honor who we are and what they were and how that matters to our now.
Mama Denise Graves of the Congo Square Preservation Society talked about music being this transcendent language where it's not a barrier. It's something that we all understand. And for me, being a retired trumpet player, it felt good to pull out my old axe and participate with so many people expressing themselves through music. It was coming back home, in a sense, because my storytelling started through the trumpet, and now it's through my pen and through my camera. And particularly with the camera, it's that universal language that we all understand. If it wasn't for those people, those early resettlers who had that fortitude, like the Chase family and so many other families who refused to be denied, New Orleans would be far less blacker than it is now. So from Congo Square to Mardi Gras to Black Masking Indians and Second Lines, they're there. So my mother, who's an ancestor now, will be so proud of the life that we are building and continue to build. 20 years after Hurricane Katrina, New Orleans is still here. Despite being pushed out, despite being displaced, we practice these traditions, we carry on, we thrive, and we ain't going anywhere.